You may know that the Land Rover Defender is not the only iconic 4x4 that has been reborn in the past couple of years. This here is the Ford Bronco. Now, the Bronco first appeared in the United States in the 1960s, stayed around for a while, but has been off sale for some decades. But now, as you can see, it's back.
It is a separate chassis off-roader with a hardcore set of Ranger-based underpinnings. Switchable four-wheel drive, live rear axle, the works. It is a 4x4 built not necessarily for daily driving, but for fun and adventures in the great American outdoors.
Now, Ford does not officially offer the Bronco in the UK. Ford of Europe has enough trouble getting through emissions regulations targets that it can't even offer a Focus RS, which is a shame. So there's no way they're going to bring in a Wrangler or Defender rivaling 4x4. So if you want one, you're going to have to get one through an unofficial importer.
This one we borrowed from Clive Sutton in London, which also imports Corvettes and a big V8 Jeep Wrangler and all sorts of other American interesting stuff. The Bronco is relatively affordable in the US, but dealers are charging big margins, and by the time one lands in the UK and it has gone through the right tests and has had the right taxes and some profit applied, it's a 75 grand car.
Okay, so this is the inside of the Bronco, and I must say I rather like it actually. It's very chunky, very cool. I think you can tell probably that the Jeep Wrangler was perhaps the target and the inspiration a bit for this car, because there's big chunky stuff everywhere. So there's big Bronco and big block letters over there. It is very obviously a 4x4, not an SUV, if you would care to make that distinction, which I think you can. Ergonomically, there are very, very good things, such as the retention of proper buttons in a lot of places. There is a touchscreen. It just does the infotainment. The temperature gauge, the volume control is still done by actual big physical buttons, which is excellent. I get a drive controller down here for the drive modes, GOAT modes. Greatest of all time, or GOAT as in mountain goat. If it's greatest of all time, Jeep might have a few things to say about that, I'd have thought.
It actually goes over any terrain, and a bit like the various terrain response systems in, say, a Land Rover or a Jeep, it will change the engine and gearbox and traction and stability responses to adjust to whatever is under wheel.
And there are cool steering wheel buttons which feel sort of rubberized and waterproof, which is quite handy because the roof comes off, the doors come off, and you may be able to hear, I don't know, I think you can, every time I go over a bump or something, you sort of get a slight rattle of hood mechanism and rear seats rattling around. It feels more agricultural in a way than the most road-focused of SUVs, which is inevitable, isn't it? Because it is not one of those cars. It is a more rugged, it is a more serious piece of 4x4 kit. Now, I would love to take this a long way off-road, and there may be a chance in the future that we will do that. However, the importer of this car has already sold it. This car belongs to a customer who is going to get it at some point. So they've said, look, we don't mind if you go off-road a little bit, just to sort of, just for effect, really. But please don't go anywhere you might damage it. So we're just going to go on a track, and I will give you the off-road capability in terms of approach departure angles and things like that.
The four-door Bronco runs on coil springs and has a ground clearance of 295mm. The approach angle is 43.2 degrees, the ramp angle is 26.3 degrees, and the departure angle is 37 degrees. It can wade through 850mm of water.
On the road then, this is not quite as refined as some cars, but it is more refined, I think, than a Wrangler. I haven't driven the two back to back, but I did run a Wrangler for a very long time. It was a Rubicon, so it had proper off-roady tyres, which this is not on. But this feels to me like a more refined piece of kit. And I was reading somebody else's review the other day where this came out as a road car, as a preferable set of wheels to the Jeep, and I get that. It is reasonably refined. It's totally refined enough. It's got this 2.3 litre engine, which most of the time you don't hear, and it thrums along happily enough when you do. It's got a 10-speed automatic gearbox, and when you get so many gears, I sometimes worry that the gearbox ends up hunting too often for the right ratio, but it doesn't seem to in here. It's just very refined, very normal. The only sort of lack of road refinement really is that kind of the inherent ruggedness of it, but more so the kind of tenty roof noise from this soft top. But that is an inevitability with a soft roofed car. You can't get one of those on the present Land Rover Defender, but let's hop out of this, hop into that, and just see how the two, they're not direct rivals, I would grant you, but just see how the two compare on road and also off. Okay, so welcome to the inside of the Defender, which is a quiet car. And I know the old Defender does not do the same as what the new Defender does. And this car is no longer really strictly a sort of Bronco or Wrangler type rival. Those are the cars. I remember speaking to one Jeep engineer, he said, the thing is, when people buy Wrangler, they stay stock for about 5 minutes, and then people mod them and they go off-road in them. And I think the Bronco will be a similar sort of thing. And I don't think the Defender quite has the same use case. This is now, Land Rover doesn't like the phrase SUV when it comes to Defender, it prefers 4x4, but I think really, if you do make a distinction between the two, I don't usually, but if you do want to, this feels more like an SUV than a 4x4, if you like. It's not a utility vehicle. And actually, when you go off-road in them, which I will come to in a moment, the Defender is the kind of car that makes life really easy for you. And on the road, even though this one has the off-road pack fitted and it has pretty senior off-road tyres fitted, it's an incredibly refined, quiet machine. It's a fantastic motorway car, which is daft to say, isn't it? Because it's so tall and everything else, but it's really stable, it's really quiet. It is wide on British roads, like really wide, much wider than the Bronco, in fact, and that is on narrow British lanes a bit of a problem, which tells you something about where Land Rover expects to sell Defenders. The UK is still an important market for it, but other markets where they have wider spaces is more important again. But it's just so nice. It's just so nice. The interior is really nicely finished. You still get some things that you can operate with gloved hands, which is good, because that was always a Land Rover thing. You know, if you get in and you've been out working and it's cold and you don't want to take your gloves off, you can still push buttons and they work, which is great. It's still a utilitarian vehicle. It's just that these days that is mixed with a tremendous level of refinement. But it also retains an exceptional set of off-road capabilities. Here are the numbers.
Numbers for a coil-sprung Land Rover in long wheelbase form will not be quite as good as this short air-sprung model, but its ground clearance is 290mm, almost as good as the Bronco. Its approach angle is 37.5 degrees, also not quite as good as the Bronco. Its ramp angle is 30.7 degrees, better than the Ford, but then this one is a short one. And its departure angle is excellent at 40 degrees, and that's the same whether you've got a short or a long Defender. Also, it can wade through 900mm of water, a bit more than the Bronco, but, well, both will seem pretty deep.
So, in conclusion, these two cars are not exactly the same thing, but they're similar enough, I think, that they bear comparison with the others. The Land Rover feels like a more natural, everyday car, if you like. It's more refined. It's official, it comes with a manufacturer warranty and all that malarkey in the UK. The Bronco, I really enjoy. It's not so rugged that it's unrefined, but it is not as smooth a road car as this Defender is. But it feels like a slightly more involved thing. And the fact that you can take the roof off, you can take the doors off. If you lived in the right place, I suspect you may end up having more fun with it in rugged terrain than you would with the Defender, which is less of a hobbyist off-roader and more of just a very capable off-roader that happens to be a brilliant executive car at the same time. For most people's use in the UK, Defender would be the natural choice, but I can absolutely see the cases where you might want a Bronco instead.